Hello!
Hi everyone! Welcome back to another episode of If You Know, You Know.
And if you don't know, unfortunately and very sadly, I feel like this is something that everyone will come to know sooner or later.
I think everyone will experience this at least once in their lifetime or twice because parents. Anyway.
I don't want to laugh, I'm sorry, the way you said it.
Really what? It's the truth.
Okay, so
I speak the
topic.
truth.
So what are we talking about today?
We're talking about the reality of grief and death.
Yes.
Very heavy topic, but we wanted to do it because
it's important.
Yeah, it's important. Okay. So what's the question today?
Question today is, how are you really? It's a very broad question. How are you?
How am I? I've been very tired and okay, so long story short is I recently had a relative that passed away. One of my cousins passed away, and it was not easy because it's very hard watching like all my aunts like cry, and like I'm a influential crier, means I watch people cry, then it makes me want to cry also. So I get very influenced by people crying very easily.
Okay.
So it's very tough because it was hard to not cry in front of all my relatives and my aunts and uncles that were obviously like upset about it. I mean, I was upset too, but I forced myself not to cry because
you don't want to add to the...
Yeah, I don't want to add to the horrible like moments. Yeah. And also because I'm the worst, like the absolute worst when it comes to talking about death and talking about grief.
Well, ironically, you're the one who suggested this.
I know.
topic.
I know. So it's like, this is really out of my comfort zone. But I feel like it has to be talked about because everyone goes through it. Like everyone is bound to go through it, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
So that's how I am. And also, okay, so very interestingly, this happened about a month ago, and it happened while I was having my spin instructor debut. Yeah, so it happened in the same week, which was the craziest, most hectic week because it was when I debuted as a spin instructor. So that was my first class, and having to be like a hype instructor and having to have that enthusiasm and energy is very different when you're in like right smack in the middle of a wake and a funeral.
Yeah, feels very conflicting.
Yeah, it was very conflicting because I didn't know whether to be happy or
like do you deal with the emotions right now?
Yeah, that's why like, do I pull a long face and like have everybody ask me what's wrong? Like, I don't want that because spin is supposed to be what makes me happy and what makes everybody happy. So it was very tough, like trying to have an in-between, trying to strike a balance between grieving and doing my job. Yeah, but I know that like, of course, my cousin would want me to be the person that I should be, which is to be enthusiastic and lively throughout class. So that was quite a difficult situation to be in, I would say.
Were y'all close, like you and your cousin?
No, we were not close. Yeah.
How do you end up dealing and like coping with all the emotions?
I mean, I have therapy. But it was also very tough because of what happened, I postponed like my therapy so many times because I know my therapist would ask me like how I've been doing and basically the question of like, how are you? And I always want to avoid it because I hate talking about death and I hate talking about grief, and I just can't bring myself to talk about it at all. I don't know why, but maybe you guys like struggle like the way I do too. I don't know whether you struggle with it the way I do, but it's just something that I can never talk about. It's always like, okay, let's move on, or like, okay, I'm done, and then I just cannot do it anymore.
That is a topic that you tend to avoid, lah.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is though? If you want to hold my hand at any point,
no, it's
my
okay.
hand is here for you to hold.
It's okay. She was so cute. So we wanted to do this episode like a while back, right? And then she brought a stuffed toy for me to hug.
Yeah, I forgot to bring it to you.
No, it's okay. But in case I needed to hug it at any point in time, she was like, okay, just hug my stuffed toy. I was like, oh my gosh, she's so sweet. What a sweet girl. What a sweet friend I have. The receiving end where like people tell me that people they love or like people that they were close to suffered something or like has passed away. And I always struggle to know the right things to say to them. So when I talk about it with other people, I know that they will struggle too, because we don't talk about it enough. I always wonder, like, what is the best thing or what is the ideal thing to say. So what is the ideal thing to say? I don't know.
When you told me, right, over text, I was like, oh my god, I don't know what to say to her.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like I want to comfort her, but I don't know how.
Yeah. I completely get it. That's why I did not tell anybody in the first place. Like, the first couple of days when it happened, I didn't tell anyone. And even after my Spain debut, I still didn't tell anyone. Like, everyone just assumed that everything was okay. So it was quite hard. But it's not good keeping everything to yourself either. So I cannot seem to find a balance between that.
How about if I spin the question and ask you, what would you have liked to hear when you're in that?
I personally don't really need that. So
I think maybe like in these situations, the best people are the people who are your family, especially if the death was within a family setting, right?
Yes.
According to what you said, the people who can share that memory, the people who can you can relate to would definitely be within the family law, because that's where the closest ties are.
That's true. I'm not very close with my family other than my sister, so I guess it's a little bit difficult, like a bit challenging. But with my immediate like relatives and stuff, I guess we can talk about it, but the way that everyone deals with it, or at least in my family, is like by family bonding and like laughing over like the good times. But sometimes I feel that there might be a more incessant need to talk about like the bad, because as much as the good happened.
What do you mean by the bad?
Like
what
really the
what bad?
Like the fact that she suffered, or the fact that she went through this and that, or the fact that the family was struggling in that sense. I think that is important to talk about as well, because talking about other things and distracting yourself from what actually happened, while it's a good coping mechanism, it should not be the only thing that you do to distract yourself.
Like, you're not facing up to the reality of things. Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm very bad at phrasing myself. You see, cannot talk about that. You see,
here's
not
the
enough
thing,
practice.
right? I understand both sides. I understand why people would talk about the good, because there's nothing that you can do to bring this person back anymore.
Of course.
Right, and when you're in a bad situation like that, what you really want to do is just remember
the good times,
the happy things.
Yes.
Right, and hope that like all these memories of this person, like all these happy memories of this person or with this person, can help to carry you through like this passing bad phase. Yeah. And like about the reality of the situation, I think maybe immediately it's hard for people to cope that way.
Of course, not immediately, but it is good to talk about it, especially if the person was very close to you or meant a lot to you. Yeah. But at the end of the day, I mean, everybody copes the way that they want to cope.
Yeah.
Which is perfectly fine. Like, there is no correct way to grieve. Neither is there a wrong way to grieve. It's just how you grieve. Like, it matters that you grieve.
Yeah.
And it matters that you don't shove things aside.
Don't compartmentalize things, right?
Don't compartmentalize because
it comes back to haunt you.
Yeah. And it's very temporary, like shoving it away.
So it has been on my mind, like, what if something happens within the family and I'm overseas?
Yeah.
It's not
definitely something that you will worry about.
Yeah. And like, I was very close to my maternal side. My grandma has left. My grandpa passed away when I was very young.
Okay.
And I was like, what, 3, 4?
Okay, I see.
I think.
I see.
Yeah, and now I'm more worried about my paternal side of the family, because my grandpa actually has prostate cancer, if I'm not wrong.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm worried if I were to go over, right, what am I supposed to do if there's a death within the family, touch wood, right?
Yes.
But like I would want to fly back,
And be here. Yeah.
but I don't know how possible that is with COVID.
Yeah, and how
With-
realistic that is because you have school.
Yeah, like I don't know, like am I allowed to just drop everything and go?
Yeah. But I'm guessing, of course, you will want to. It's just matter of how.
Yeah.
I guess realistically speaking, if it's not possible, then like it's not possible. Because, okay, so I had this friend that had a random like brain aneurysm, and because actually nothing happened. He just had a brain aneurysm, which is basically a brain bleed, if I'm explaining this correctly. But all I know is that his like something in his brain exploded and he was in a coma and has been in a coma since. My friend that was in Australia, which is his best friend, couldn't fly back. Yeah, because realistically, like it was in the peak of COVID, and everybody couldn't visit him in the hospital. Like only his relatives and like partner were allowed to go down. So it was very, very hard. But realistically speaking, like we all know that there is nothing that we can do to alleviate the situation or like to come back and visit him. Like my friend in Australia could not like drop everything and fly home because he can't, even though he wanted to. Yeah, so that was very difficult also.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I understand where you're coming from in terms of like not being able to drop everything and come and
Correct.
participate in like family matters.
Yeah. Plus,
That
like
is hard.
I guess like the documents and stuff, right? To prepare and I think everything that you need to do within like this COVID period.
Yeah.
Funerals happen very, very quickly
Yes.
after
like
someone dies.
mine was only, I mean not mine, but my cousin's was only 3 days.
Yeah.
Yeah, 3 days. And then on the third day it was the cremation already.
Yeah. So
And there is a limit on like the number of people that can come
yeah.
and like the number of people that can be present at the funeral. Yeah. It's not easy at all.
Yeah. Plus
Having grief in the time of COVID.
plus I wouldn't want like my parents to worry about even more logistics
Yeah, if you were to fly home.
relate to your story and like how difficult it is to cope and to even just
Yeah.
tell your friends
Yeah.
or like be with your family while you're going through everything together.
Yeah. It kind of sucks. But also the reality of grief. Like I always struggle to think about like what is the reality. The reality is that it happened and we need to continue living our lives. That's why when I say like I don't know how to go on with my spin instructor debut, that is putting a pause on my life, which should not be the case. Because that is not something that my cousin would have wanted. And that is definitely not something that should be happening at all in any circumstance. Like you shouldn't have to pause your life to deal with the death, but you should like live and move on while like living your life to the fullest possible. Like I know it's very hard, and it's also very hard to explain how you should live your life like while dealing with a death. But if you don't live your life, everything comes to a standstill. It's very unrealistic also. Like you can't pause your job and sit in your bed all day and just mope. Of course you can have some time to do that, but that should not be
A long-term mechanism.
Yes, correct. It must not be a long-term coping mechanism because that is not what the person that passed away would want for you to happen. Yeah.
I mean, I think yeah.
Yes.
I think the not good thing, but something about death reminds to put a more positive spin on it would be that it reminds everyone that no matter how long you live, life is short. If you were to look back on your years,
Actually, the amount of like days we get to live is really, really short. Like in a grand scheme of things, like 90 years is nothing compared to like the amount of years that we we as humans have to live. Oh my god, we're gonna get everybody to get into a mental spiral. So like we shouldn't dive too deep into this.
Okay.
But in the grand scheme of things, right, it is very, very little time that we get to survive on this earth.
Okay, I mean, if you look back on your years, right? I was just looking back at my memories yesterday.
How do you not get into an existential crisis? I would never know.
Here's the thing, and it felt so short. It felt like 4 years were nothing. While you are living in that period, right? You feel like, oh my god, this is a drag, this is damn long.
But in retrospect, not at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like going a little bit back to what you said, you shouldn't stop living your life. And in fact, it should be, if you want to look at it in a positive light, try to be who you want to be and live out your dreams.
Wow.
This sounds so...
That's so cringe.
Yeah. You know what? Stop me. Yeah, but you know, just do what you want to do because life is very short lah.
Yeah, and this, like, if anything, death reminds everyone that life is so impermanent at the same time. So just do what makes you happy. Don't try and limit what you want to do or like stick to what somebody else tells you to do just because they want you to do it. When in reality, like, you should be pursuing what you want because it's your own life and everybody has an expiry date. So in order to...
Oh my gosh.
To live your best life.
They hit me hard. Everyone has an expiry date.
But it's true.
That's true.
Everyone has an expiry date. It's just a matter of how long or how short your life on earth is.
Yeah.
And even though we might not know what happens after, this is why we should live our best life. Because we don't know what happens after. Yeah. And remember to talk about it even though it's hard. Like, even though it's hard, I'm still sitting here talking about death and grief, even though I absolutely hate talking about it. But I think it's important to talk about it nonetheless because you cannot keep everything to yourself and you cannot keep everything in. It's so important to let it out so that you can not only like get support from people around you, you can also get opinions and like thoughts about your situation and how other people deal with it is maybe like something you can learn as well. Yeah. And get a happy hobby while you are dealing with grief. For me, it's coloring.
Huh? I thought you were gonna say spin.
No. I mean spin is always gonna be my like coping mechanism for everything. But when I need like a bit more calmness in my life, not like the tumzi music and like riding on the bikes, even though I love that with my whole heart and soul, like I just like to sit down and color.
Therapeutic stuff.
So I need something calming. And I need to like put on a good like song or like a good movie that will calm me down, and then I just like sit at my desk and color. Yeah, so that's one of my coping mechanisms. So if it helps, go buy yourself a coloring book and some pencils and get to work. Yeah, because it really calms me down and it really like distracts me for a while.
And you know what? If anyone feels like y'all have good coping mechanisms, right, just comment down below. So and you never know, you might help someone.
Help me. Yeah. Okay.
So I think with that, we will see you next week.
Bye.